Ready? We will go live. Welcome back to the Lovecraft Easing podcast. We've got a guest today, another guest all the way from Australia, Madeline Harding. Hey, Maddie.
Hey, how you doing, everybody?
Hey, Mike, did the recording start? Because I didn't get a notice.
Yeah,
I didn't either.
Good point. We're live, but I didn't start the
recording in progress.
There it
There
goes.
we go. Now we're here. Thank you.
Two men walk into a bar, the third one ducks.
Jesus.
Ah,
So
I'm bringing it back.
Yeah. So anyway, we had a guest like 3 weeks ago from Australia. Like it's Australia. I would say
where it's all happening.
Yeah. Do what?
It's where it's all happening.
That's right.
Yeah, especially with horrifying critters, you know,
They're a beacon of freedom.
deadly, venomous things. Yeah.
So we're gonna do introductions, and then Maddie, if you don't mind, Pete's gonna spend like 2 or 3 minutes on a new book he's in because he's got to go after about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll
Right.
speak with you if that's okay. I'm Mike Davis, for anyone watching for the first time, host of the podcast, and we do this every Sunday at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And you can watch it live, which you know if you're watching live right now, or you can watch it anytime later. It also, the audio gets put on iTunes, or not iTunes, it's Apple now, I guess, and Spotify and all those places after a few days. So that's me. Bridget?
Hello, I'm Bridget, composer, artist, producer.
Yep.
Yup.
Mark?
Mark Rainey, editor, horror writer, author of many scary things.
Yep.
Is that your tax bill too?
I refuse to answer that question.
Alan?
Hey, Alan, artist when I'm not at my day job, and write about movies and games for the eZine page.
And Matt hosts Lovecraft Easy and Movie Night for me, so
Okay, so there is a podcast prize today. I've got an extra unopened copy of the Dark Grimoire Tarot. If you would like to enter to win this, just send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com. Put Dark in the subject line, and we'll draw a winner in about 6 to 8 weeks. I will say again that if you're from a country other than the U.S., the shipping it's gotten absolutely outrageous. So we generally will send you some kind of electronic book instead if your number is drawn.
yeah. Sorry, but not much of a choice with the way postage is out of the country.
And I'm also just going to say that the next Patreon podcast analyzing a Lovecraft story is going to be the Dunwich Horror. So on the Facebook main page for the eZine, I've put some pictures from the better versions of the Dunwich Horror for Wilbur's twin brother. So you can go look at those to get you in the mood.
Yeah, Lovecraft Easing Facebook group. And while we're on the subject of the Patreon, if you're not a Patreon, you get a lot for a little, and I can't continue the show without my patrons. So if you are, thank you, and if you're not, I hope you'll consider it. It's just $5 a month. Pete, you want to introduce yourself and talk about that book?
So I'm Pete Rullick, and I pretend to write things. I'm not very good. Other people write my stuff for me, and I just put my name on it. But
He's a very good pretender, I would say.
But I got really excited because I got this week. This is Into the Cthulhu Universe. It is a mashup between various mythos tropes and various literary events. This includes Joe Lansdale's hard-to-find story in which he does Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer with the Cthulhu mythos on the river.
That Dark Isle?
Yes. It also includes stories by Ramsey Campbell, Joe Lansdale, Jonathan Mayberry, Barry Malzberg, Cat Rambo, me and Sal, Christopher Sequeira, who does a Fantastic Four spiff. And
Wait, is Mr. Fantastic a Shoggoth?
I haven't read it yet.
Oh.
Note the spine is clean.
What's the title of your story, you and Sal's?
My title is The Queen Solution. And it's Herbert West meets Miss Marple.
Of course it's Herbert West.
Hello, Miss Marple.
Yes. If you don't know, I got this idea because Miss Marple's nephew is named West, Raymond West. And
Bloody brilliant, Pete.
yes, I just thought that there'd be nice little confusion during World War I there. This comes out from IFWG Publishing and is available now at Amazon, I believe. And just to keep with the theme for tonight, IFWG is Australian.
There you go.
So there you go.
So, Maddie, is the daughter of Lee Harding, who was a writer. I think it was 2023 he passed away. Is that right?
That's
And
right. Yeah. 2 years ago this month.
oh, well, I've talked about this book off and on throughout the years of this podcast that he wrote called Displaced Person. Not the only book he wrote, of course, but I remember it came out in 1979, I guess, and I remember checking it out of the library. It was probably about 1982 or something like that, 1981, 1982. And it really had an effect on me. And years later, as an adult, I thought about it and tried to find it and ended up figuring out again what the title was because I had forgotten and rereading it. And so when I reread it, before I reread it, I was kind of wondering, first of all, would it hold up, to my memory of how great of a book it was? And my second concern, reading it again as an adult, was, is this just a kid's book? Did it seem like just a kid's book to me, which is fine, but I'm happy to say that it holds up very well. And this is a book that a teenager can read. I was a little young when I read it, and many adults have read and enjoyed the hell out of it too. So anyway, Maddie, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and, introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your
Yeah,
dad?
I'd love to.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Sure.
I'm very appreciative. My name's Maddie. I'm Lee's youngest daughter of 4. I'm project manager currently, former professional actor in Australia. Kicked around for about 8 years as a gigging actor, was fortunate enough to be able to earn a paycheck from that. It's a very competitive industry in Australia, being much smaller, obviously, than the US, but had a modicum of success, which was great. Transferred those creative skills across to project management. Wearing the hat currently of screenwriter for the first time, which is very exciting. My husband and I launched a production company at the start of this year. He's also a writer. He's working on a fantastic series at the moment. And I am adapting Displaced Person for the screen. So I come to you today from the future. It's actually 8:15 on Monday morning.
And is it true that everyone there walks upside down? I've always wanted to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought so. Well, let me read Maddie's synopsis. That's she's reprinting the book. I don't know if we said that or not yet. I don't think we did. In Kindle and print. And you said it would be a few days, and already it's available in print in the United States. I saw this morning.
Yes, we do need to tweak, however, because I think that we ticked the 6x9 box, which is far too big for a paperback. So we'll go back and do some revisions and get a 5x8. But it's been out of print for nearly 35 years.
Yeah.
And I just think that it needs to be back in circulation. It was a story that was decades ahead of its time. It originated from a short story that Dad wrote in 1961. And I've watched many sci-fi and cosmic horror films now where I just think to myself, these are the themes that my dad was writing about in the 60s. So let's get it back out there. It deserves a new audience.
Yeah, it really, like I said, it had a huge effect on me. I've talked about it to my audience and heard back from a lot of folks that read it at my urging, and it had the same effect on them.
Mhm.
You know, it's a very poignant, bittersweet book, but it's cosmic horror at the same time. I'd like to read excuse me, your synopsis from the Kindle book, and then let's talk about it. Graham Drury is fading, literally. At first, it's subtle. A waitress forgets his order. A tram conductor overlooks his ticket. But soon, his world turns gray, silent, and paper thin. His parents don't see him. His girlfriend vanishes into shadow. Graham is vanishing too, slipping into a chilling, liminal space where nothing feels real, and no one remembers that he ever existed. A haunting mediation on identity, alienation, and the fragile boundaries of reality. Displaced Person stands at as a masterpiece of science fiction. And like you said, published in 1979. And when did you start having thoughts that, first of all, the book has been very hard to find, you know, for a long time. And if you did find a copy, then it was pretty expensive. But you're correcting that. There's already a Kindle version out, and you said the corrected print will be out probably this week sometime.
Mhm.
So I guess my first question is, what prompted you to do this?
On a really personal level, I think it was born from a place of grief. When a parent dies, obviously it's a very, very challenging time. And I comforted myself in the initial months with his passing of telling myself, well, he's not really gone because his work is still there. So his work lives on. And then I thought, well, his work's no longer in print. So hang on, that doesn't actually quite work. So it was grappling with the idea of not wanting him to really be gone, in the sense that if we have access to his work, then we can share it. So I think that's definitely where this idea was born from a place of grief, but then also from a place of love. Displaced Person is my favorite of my father's novels. He published 11 novels in his time, over 40 short stories. He was translated into 9 languages. I actually have some show and tell. So this is the copy of the first Australian edition. It actually won the prestigious Australian Children's Book of the Year award in 1980. Whether it's a children's book or not that's another debate. This is the German copy, entitled Limbus. And for those playing at home, we also have the Swedish copy. So just some examples there of how far-reaching this incredible book was at the time. I was born in 1985, so I missed a lot of experience as dad as an author. Dad was just always dad to me. But from what I've found by going through boxes and boxes of keepsakes that he squirreled away and didn't really tell me about, I discovered that there was actually interest from an American studio to develop this into a feature film at the time. I knew nothing of this until recently.
Yeah.
I also did some digging and found out that there was interest to make the film here in Victoria, in Australia in the 1980s. But nothing ever came of these discussions. I'm not entirely sure why. It just sort of fell away. Dad wasn't quite able to chase the same success as Displaced Person. His follow-up novels, while they were critically acclaimed and they sold well, he never quite reached the same peak as he had with Displaced Person. So I recently reread it again. It just spoke to me so much. It's eerily haunting, the way that he talks about alienation, social isolation in the 1970s, I feel is incredibly poignant now, after the collective trauma of the lockdowns of COVID. And there's a lot of anxiety and paranoia in the world now, especially with the younger generations. We're more connected than ever via technology and social media, but I think we're actually the least present in our connections than ever before.
You know, speaking of being invisible, Mark, did I pass over you on introductions, or am I just losing it? You introduced yourself, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
then
I did.
I'm just losing it.
I'm not going to say you're not delusional.
Well, no one would say that.
No one would. But no, you're all good.
Okay, sorry about that, Maddie. Can you talk about you've got a forward to the new edition, which you talked a bit about that, or quite a lot about that. Loneliness in 1979 as compared to today. What do you think? Talk about what you wrote in there, the differences.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see if I can find that passage.
And I'm so curious too, if you've thought about if your dad wrote that book today, what would he change? What would he not change?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. I think in the 70s, loneliness was something that was tangible. It was something that you could put a name on, and it was about physical connection. So if the rotary phone didn't ring for 3 days, or if a neighbor didn't come and see you, it's the tree falling in the woods if nobody hears it. If no one is actually connecting with you, do you cease to exist to those around you because you're not in a present moment? And I think compared to today, where there's this false sense of connection, but all of our interactions can be quite passive when it comes to social media. It's likes, it's swipes, it's commenting while I'm having a conversation with somebody else. It's sitting down, having a coffee with someone who's on their phone, or going for a walk with somebody and they're thinking about a comment that someone made on their post, and therefore they're not present in the conversation that you're having with them. And I just feel that the internet's a very scary space. I almost feel like the internet essentially is the grey world of now, and that it is very easy for us to get lost in putting out a certain version of ourselves that may not be correct. Your Instagram's a liar. We all know that. We put forward the best versions of ourselves,
Right.
but are we truly connected to what's going on? I think that's really concerning. I'm frightened for future generations, to be honest.
How do you think the loneliness? Why do you think this book continues to resonate with teenagers and adults? What is it about the book that?
I really think that the COVID lockdowns had a lot to do with it. I think that people were forced to look inward and forced to sit with themselves for maybe the first time ever. I think it was a very confronting time. In Australia, for example, we had curfews. We weren't allowed to leave the house after 9 o'clock. We weren't allowed to go more than 2 kilometres from our home.
Wow.
There were limitations on types of products we could buy at the supermarket. At the time, we had to be at the supermarket. So for the first time, we were living in this very regimented and controlled space, and we were isolated. We were cut off from people. And then I think we came out of that, and a lot of us had sort of forgotten how to be around other people, and now the neural pathways were realigned, and now we order our shopping online, we order our groceries online, we pay our bills online, we talk to people online, we get on Zooms online, but
Right.
so much of that human connection is just gone. I have a stepdaughter who's 26, and I see her and her friends walking around with this persistent social anxiety because they lived through 8 months of lockdown and they've almost forgotten how to be young people together.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a 22-year-old, and yeah, I feel the same way. The thing that grabbed me about this book right away, I remember still after all these decades, is I I really wasn't into horror as a kid much, but I was into reading a lot of science fiction, and I had kind of a weird childhood, so I was into reading books about teenagers with, quote unquote normal lives. And so the cover that you held up is the one that I came across in 82 or whenever it was. And from the cover, you think that it's it's going to be another one of those types of novels, you know, about things that teenagers go through, high school, all that stuff. But then I opened it up to the first page, and it just grabbed me right away because, and I think it was really brilliant the way that your dad did this was, you know, he got the attention of the reader right away, and then went back into what had happened. The book starts off with, "The darkness is closing in. I must get something down before it becomes absolute. Jamie and Marion have gone already, taking the gray world with them, and I sit alone in a derelict house in some godforsaken corner of the universe, talking to a tape recorder." And I read that first paragraph, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm checking this book out." So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, you know anything at all about what inspired your father to write this? And talk about the short story that it comes from, too, if you could.
Um, I've seen the short story,
Hmm.
and it is very short. It's probably 2 chapters. It's the start.
Yeah.
And it actually won an award. I remember at the time it won an award for being an unfinished manuscript. And I think Dad was he was quite into the existential dread, if you will. So
Okay.
he wasn't a pessimist by any means, but he was always kind of thinking about the vastness of the universe and the insignificance of humankind. He loved all things space. I've got his beautiful books, his NASA books.
Oh, wow.
Um,
I'm sort of an
he
astronomy
it was
buff, so that
just
sounds wonderful.
he was very connected to that idea of how small we are in such an expansive vastness, and he passed that on to me. When I was growing up, I thought that I was quite morbidly attracted to post-apocalyptic genre, but I didn't realize it's not that, it's the cosmic horror element that I'm actually really, really drawn to as well. This book was originally touted as science fiction. I don't believe that it's science fiction. It's definitely cosmic horror.
Yeah.
And it's been through my connection with you, Mike, and my research around cosmic horror that I realized that now some of my most favorite movies and books are cosmic horror. So it's quite exciting as a 40-year-old to make a brand new discovery about literature.
Let me ask you a couple things before I forget. First of all, how do you know this about your father? Was he always talking about space? And, you know,
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, we were really, really close. We had a lot of those types of conversations.
that's
I
great.
remember being, 10 or 12 years old and asking him what the meaning of life was. And he showed me Monty Python movies to help me make my own understanding of the world. But he was
A wise man.
very philosophical, not religious, very interested in learning about religions and theology and that type of thing, but very much, we're here on a pale blue dot for a very short amount of time. What else is out there? We don't know. Are we in control of what's going on? So yeah, we
Yeah.
had a lot of really interesting conversations about what it all means.
Yeah. By the way, just for the audience, we're not going to talk spoilers, so feel free to keep listening if you haven't read the book. Um, what you said a minute ago that you've realized that, you know, many of your favorite books and movies are cosmic horror. Um,
Mhm.
can you name some of those? What are some of the books and movies that are cosmic horror that you've liked?
Something that's always stayed with me is Arthur Clarke's 2001: A Space Odyssey. I saw that for the first time when I was maybe 7. My dad and I shared a love of movies, so he was always giving me a fantastic education. But I remember watching that film and as a young child and having something just stir inside me for the first time. What does this all mean? This is really scary. We're not in control. There's
Right.
something else out there. So that was definitely one of the first. Um, Donnie Darko, incredible. Again, saw that as a teenager, stayed with me. I still have nightmares about the ending. But again, it's
I
these
didn't catch the
stories
title. I'm
that
sorry. I didn't catch the title. I'm sorry.
Donnie
Oh,
Darko.
Donnie Darko. Oh, yes.
Donnie
We talked
Darko.
about that last week, as a matter of fact.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, it's a perfect example of not everything is as it seems, and
Yeah.
I just said I still have nightmares about the ending. It's a perfect film. There's a great Australian film called Dark City, which people may know. Rufus Sewell.
Yeah, we all know that one pretty well.
Oh, just
movie.
Yeah.
incredible. Well, just these dark concepts and the dark romantic stories embedded within those as well. I love that stuff.
Well, I won't say how. Like I said, no spoilers, but Graham definitely finds out in the course of the book just how small he is in comparison to the universe, and that there are forces out there that are, you know, in control of our lives, and he has very limited control over his life, and that's terrifying. It's definitely existential horror, cosmic horror.
Mm.
Um, Wanted to ask you too. Um, what about the questions that I don't know to ask about your dad? About this in relation to this book, and what would you like to say about him, and what would you like to say to the audience out there as far as, pick this book up and you'll really like it, which they will.
It's not a kid's book.
Yeah.
Yes, the protagonist is a 17-year-old boy, but I think the reason why Dad chose to have Graham 17 is he wanted to show that innocence of youth, and how you're told to be a certain way and act a certain way, and if you go to university you'll get a job and then you'll get married and you'll have kids, and that's the way that life is supposed to be. And I think that's why Graham is 17, but Dad's also given him this incredibly intellectual narrative at the same time. He muses about philosophy. He talks to other
Yeah.
characters about really, really complex themes. And I love that, because at the same time, I think it's very easy to think of younger generations as being not as knowledgeable or not as experienced, but we get to view the grey world through Graham's eyes. And having him younger, I do think it makes it very, very scary, because Graham doesn't jump to conclusions about what's going on, and he does ask older people that he comes in contact with to help him make sense of what's going on. And I thought that was a really beautiful choice.
Yeah. You mentioned in the introduction that you feel that Displaced Person is kind of a mirror for modern times. What lessons are you hoping that people, or themes, something to think about, that they would come away with after reading this book?
Put your phone down,
Right.
look someone in the eye when they're having a conversation with you,
Yeah.
switch off your social media, just be present. I think it's so important. I think we're losing the art of being able to maintain a conversation with somebody. I think attention spans are shortening. Kids are living in this world of 3-second TikToks, and if you don't get their attention within 2 minutes, they're not listening to you anymore.
Yeah.
So just throwing all of that away and kind of getting back to what it was like in 1979 to have a conversation with someone, to touch base with somebody, to be neighborly, to be approachable. Yeah, like the themes are big, but I think at the core of it, that's the takeaway for me, is just be present.
Well, there's so many positives to modern technology and the internet and so forth. I mean, our conversation right here is one of the positives. But yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. The If I'm having a conversation with my wife or my son, I never have the phone with me.
Mm.
If it is with me, it's in my pocket. I don't, it's I don't have it. Oh, it's out in case somebody texts me or something like that. They can wait, because I'm talking to Danielle or Logan. And it's always surprising to me how many people don't do that. You know, this multitasking your attention is looked at as a positive, you know, and I don't feel that it is. Uh, my wife is a school teacher. In her class, she doesn't allow the cell phones. And at the beginning of every year, that's a battle that she has to go through with her
Yeah.
students until they figure out that she's not kidding. And it's amazing to me that some teachers don't, because how do you get your kid? It's hard enough to get kids to pay attention anyway. And if they've got a little device in their hand where they can escape the teacher's droning or what they might view as droning, they're going to do it, you know?
Mm.
So I don't know. Like anything else, it has its negatives, and there are many of them. So,
Yeah.
um, what else do you want to say about the book? Where I'm trying to avoid spoilers. So,
We can do that.
yeah,
I also really like I like the commentary that he makes on characters that essentially live on the fringes of society and
yeah,
how we view those types of people. Um, do we look at people who are older as wise, or do we look at them as doddering old people? Do we look at people that may have brushes with the law as unsavory people, or are they just products of their environment and their actions have led them to where they are, but were they in full control of those actions or not? So there's a lot of that type of commentary in the book as well, again, which I think is so incredibly poignant.
yeah,
I
because
do worry about, I do worry about our perception of others when really we should be thinking about the relationship that we have with ourselves.
you know, in the book, Graham is presented as this he's a pretty smart, well-rounded, but
Yeah, he's put together.
normal kid though. And you know, there's a scene where his parents don't notice him anymore, and he that is heartbreaking for him. You know, he loves his parents, but then he meets up with two other people later on that are also in the gray world, Marion and Jamie, and they're more on the fringes that you're talking
Mm,
about. And it's very telling that your dad wrote about this normal kid that's in the gray world, but also these other two people who are on the fringes. They're also in the gray world. So it's not just people like them who are slipping away and forgotten. Um, so yeah, would you tell the audience a little bit more about or excuse me, about Jamie and Marion?
absolutely. Marion is a little bit younger, we think, than Graham. She's incredibly guarded when we meet her in the grey world. She's not so much frightened about what's happening as she is angry about what's happening, because this wasn't the plan and she was in control, and now she's here, and that's just, that's not a good thing. And I think initially as readers we may not like Marion, or we may not warm to Marion very much as a character. She's very standoffish. But then after spending time with Marion, the walls come down. She talks more about her situation, what she's been through. Essentially, she's a runaway. She's been in and out of trouble with the law, and she's really struggling to find her place in the world. I love Marion. I have a real warmth and affection for her as a character. Jamie is wonderful. He's like a Pied Piper type character, a much older gent, bit of a scallywag, hasn't really had a serious job as far as conventional jobs go, plays a recorder, plays Greensleeves on repeat.
Hmm.
He's lucky enough to have a musical instrument that came through the grey world with him. A philosopher, a thinker of great things, a thinker of deep things, and somebody who Graham is able to really navigate towards and help him find his true north within the grey world. Fantastic character. Someone who actually my dad sort of turned into in his 80s. So
Yeah.
I find that quite lovely.
He made me think of the second Doctor Who.
Yeah.
if you're familiar with that, because he played a recorder.
There you go. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and I can't find it right now, but I know there was a passage in the book that stuck with me about Graham. He's musing to himself, what is causing this? And he talks about it's not just people who are forgotten, things are forgotten. The objects that slip into the gray world, he thinks people have forgotten about these. And it's good that some people forgot about some food products because otherwise they couldn't eat. And one thing he says is it's a place for lost souls, talking about limbo, discarded and forgotten people, something like that. I was very confused. Discarded and forgotten by whom? This was what bothered me most, the great unanswered question, and the grayness seemed deeper than before. So he's musing to himself, what is causing this? And why are people forgotten?
Mm-hmm.
So, Alan, I know you have some questions too, and Bridget, I think.
You mentioned it was translated into 9 countries. Was it ever translated into Japanese?
Not that I'm aware of. I can't find.
I only say that because thematically and visually, this seems like it predicted the Silent Hill video game series.
Oh, yep, I can see that.
Yeah, so I was just wondering
Yeah.
if there's some connection there, but maybe your father was onto the same themes.
That's how I feel, and that's why it was really important for us to get this reprinted again. I feel I've seen and read so many things that echo Displaced Person over and over again. So yeah, no, I think you might be onto something there.
Can I riff on that for a second?
Please.
So the short story is published, what, 1961?
Yes.
And then the novel doesn't come out until 1979.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meanwhile, he publishes a huge volume of work. Do you like the Shadow World?
Mm-hmm.
Gray World.
I'm sorry, the Gray World. Do you think that there's any themes that were borrowed or prematurely taken from what he wanted to do with displaced persons and used earlier in these in other books?
I think the cosmic horror themes were always there about the insignificance of humans in the vast unknowing. I think that theme is in quite a lot of the books. I don't think it's been cannibalized essentially, but it was definitely something that was a driver for him in a lot of the stories. Yeah, there's one of my other favorites is The Children of Atlantis, again, which has a very important message for people about taking care of the planet and each other, but again has that foreboding sense of this is not the end. There's something bigger driving everything else.
And then later he writes Waiting for the End of the World, which,
yes.
How much more existential can you get?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm assuming most of his work is before we go that way, he was also an editor. He edited 3 volumes of.
That's right. He worked with Ursula Le Guin quite a lot. He edited some anthologies of her work. He worked on science fiction magazines. He and his friends, I've written it down. He just lived such a colourful life.
Yeah.
So he actually, with some friends, launched the very first science fiction bookshop here in Melbourne, Australia. It was called Space Age Books, and it was right in the middle of the city. And he and his friends took turns working at that bookstore and importing books into Australia.
That's so cool.
He launched the first ever science fiction writers' workshop with Ursula in the 80s. So there was not a space for science fiction writers to come together and workshop and test out new ideas. So he was there. And again, this is a driver. So we know Ursula Le Guin's name, but we don't know Lee Harding's name. And I think that he deserves a seat at the table with the greats, with Ursula, with Philip K. Dick. We need to start talking about his work again.
So that leads me to the next one. So we're starting with Displaced Person. Are we going to see more?
That is the hope.
That's
That is the hope. I also have squirreled away just to the right of me here 7 unfinished manuscripts. So he was working right up until he simply couldn't.
Wow.
We did have discussions back when I was younger. He wanted to do something with me. He wanted to write a kid's book together. And I kept saying, no, Dad, Displaced Person, like we need to turn this into a film. And he'd be like, no, I don't want to talk about it. But, you know, it was there. The interest was there. I think that the legacy deserves to be there. So that's what I'm trying to do.
You should definitely pick up those manuscripts, and if you don't want to finish them yourself, find someone to do that.
Absolutely. And again, science fiction was always a pull to him, those existential themes. It was just, it spoke to him. He also tried his hand at young adult fiction as well. There's an incredibly moving coming of age story, which he's written, again, with a younger boy, essentially, cusp of adulthood, who falls in love with an older woman. And it's so incredibly moving. A lot of his stories are set in the 70s and the 80s. That was a golden age for Dad, and a lot of his stories and his characters are set in that time. So it's definitely a watch this space. It's the reason why we created our production company. The stories just deserve to be out there. They're too good to be hidden away in a box.
Yeah, the only, we think about what the movie The Wave, the Australian, and then Cthulhu Mythos version,
The Last Wave, right?
The
Last
Last
Wave,
Wave, yeah,
yeah.
great movie.
And then for Cthulhu Mythos Writers Classic is Vol Molesworth. A little earlier than your dad, but yeah, I always like seeing. In fact, I did the introduction for a collection of mythos stories a couple of years ago from Australia and New Zealand. So it's nice to see this work, and I really struggle to find it, and I hope to see more of it. And I'm looking forward to seeing your dad's stuff back in print.
Thank you, Peter. That means a lot. It's digitizing a book is a beast in itself. My husband and I are not divorced, thankfully, but it was about 3 weekends of splitting a spine open on a precious book, shoving it on the scanner that's 10 years old, putting all your weight on top of the scanner so that it doesn't blur. And then Adobe doesn't work, and then the text recognition software doesn't work, and then it scans, but now you've got 2 different fonts. So then you spend another weekend going through and
It sounds so glamorous.
spines. So it's definitely a challenge, but one that we're so happy to undertake. And the plan is to digitize the entire collection and make it available at a very low cost as well. It's a few dollars for an ebook. It's a few dollars more for a paperback. But let's get it out there.
To Pete's point, Stephen on the live chat has a very good question. He says, horror always seems to differ in a different country as their culture shapes it. I was wondering, how does Australian culture shape horror or your dad's story? That's a good question.
Fantastic question. I think because Australia is such a large country and 80% of it is desert and space, a lot of our horror genre focuses on isolation and the themes of getting lost, whether that's literal or not. That's definitely something that I think Australian horror does really, really well. Again, it's not the vast expansiveness of space, it's the vast expansiveness of the continent. And that can be, really, really terrifying. You hear about it all the time. The 2 backpackers' car broke down, so they wandered into the desert. As Australians, we know you stay with the car. Someone will come and find you. Do not go walking into the desert. Our critters, they're not that scary. They're pretty cute, but I think we do monster horror pretty well also. But again, I think it's that notion of vast expansion and isolation and people losing themselves and their minds within that.
That really makes me want to move to Australia. I mean, I love the idea of being out there with the critters and, and taking your life into your hands amongst them.
It's okay, Mark. In a few months, we'd find your gnawed up corpse.
Well, yeah, in a few months, yes,
Because that'd
exactly.
be the first time we go looking for it.
There's one more geocache over the hill. He's going to try to get.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they're out there.
I love
Yeah,
geocaching. That's
they're
such a
out
great
yonder.
stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a great point about the desert and the isolation and the vast expanse of the desert. You know, that's I love stories that focus on that, novels, short stories,
Mhm,
whatever that focus on that. And I
I
think that
was
mhm.
wondering, could we just you got me interested in something that's a little bit of a tangent, but what would you recommend as, say, some really great Australian horror movies for us?
There's a film that is impossible to find. It's called Wake in Fright. It's one of the most terrifying Australian
I was
films I've
just
ever
gonna
seen.
bring that up. Oh my
Really?
god.
Oh, great.
I love Wake and Fright because
Yes,
it's completely divorced from reality.
absolutely. Absolutely. Again, something that I saw when I was quite young. It's terrifying, and I think it really sums up the Australiana fears that I was just talking about. Look, Wolf Creek, love it or hate it, it put Australian horror on the map. John Jarrett's fantastic, but again, it's that notion of being lost and a highway late at night, and there's nobody around, and then all of a sudden there's a set of car headlights behind you. You know, it almost starts out a little bit like Jewel. But yeah, we do it really well. There's an Australian horror that came out just last year, small budget film called Talk to Me.
oh yeah, no.
Great. We do low budget stuff again really, really well. Um, yeah, there's
They
a lot. That's probably a whole other podcast episode, but yeah, there's some fantastic Australian horror out there.
Mike, you like Lake Mungo, right?
Oh yeah, I love Lake Mungo.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, yeah. That's a great film. Matt doesn't think so,
No, but Wake
he's
and
wrong.
Fright. I mean, seriously, I can't believe, Madeline, that you and I, because I don't know a lot of people who've actually seen Wake and Fright. It doesn't read as a horror movie. It's
No, it doesn't.
I've never
but
heard of it before now.
so it's basically about this guy. He's a teacher.
Hmm.
Term ends and he wants to get go to see his girlfriend in Sydney, and gets stopped in this little town in the middle of nowhere, and no matter what he does, he can't get out.
You can't leave.
He can't leave. And like there's nothing supernatural about that. It's just that there's always something else that catches his eye or
Mhm,
diverts him, and to
mhm.
the point where he suddenly realizes that he's ruined, and
It's
he,
terrifying.
it's terrifying to him, and he ends up like seriously contemplating suicide because he spent a couple days in this town. Um, and
Not
there's
a
just
great ad of tourism.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, and there's literally no way out.
yeah, I'm gonna have to
But
check
yeah,
it
it's
out.
it's just a very disturbing film.
Mm.
Yeah, when did it come out?
70s.
Yeah, I want to say 77, 78.
You know, if only we had this thing called the internet.
That'd be great.
Oh, I know.
Some sort of
It's so convenient.
database where you can look things up.
1971.
71. Okay, so I was a bit off.
There's a remake of it apparently in 2017.
Oh,
Really?
really? Why would they do that? It was such a class. Never mind. We're not going to talk about. That's a whole other
Might have
podcast.
something to do with money.
Exactly.
I think it
Shout
got
out to The Tunnel. Great found footage film.
What's it called?
The Tunnel.
The Tunnel. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
About
It's
a reporter
fun.
who is going into like
I'm a fan of the found footage genre. I like that.
That one takes place in Sydney. So.
Mhm. I wrote it down.
This may be a very weird thing to ask you, but you had mentioned 2001: A Space Odyssey, which was actually when I was a kid, that was the first grown-up novel that I read, and I think it was maybe even more the movie than the novel, though, where I felt a sense of isolation and loneliness more than maybe in my young life, more than anything ever. And as I've aged, I am often drawn to themes of isolation. And you also mentioned COVID, the separation from other people. One of the things I've kind of pondered is, do you feel there may be something about isolation that's not just lonely, but actually something you might embrace? I sometimes find myself finding peace in isolation to a degree that I never have before.
I Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's something that's deeply personal to each of us. We're so busy. We don't stop until, it's time to go to sleep. But I think for me personally, I grew up as an only child. I'm from my dad's second marriage, and I had a lot of imaginary friends when I was little because the idea of being alone, lonely, was something that was quite terrifying for me. It's only been since being older that I've forced myself to be comfortable in my own company. For example, my husband is one of a large family, and he told me that being by himself when a teenager was the best thing in the world because, I just need to not listen to my siblings for 1 second. So I think loneliness and the idea of isolation, it's deeply personal and it's very different for each of us. But it's also incredibly important. We have to sit there and we have to reflect and we need to ask ourselves the tough questions or else we don't grow. So
Yeah,
I think,
yes, that's perfect. Because it feels like a double-edged sword
yeah,
sometimes,
absolutely.
because isolation can be overbearing, it can be alienating, and yet it can have
It's
a
essential.
deep allure. And it was during COVID, and this actually popped up on my memories just the other day, because it was from the lockdown days of COVID, and I had made a video out here on the front porch, and it was quiet, totally quiet, not a car sound or anything. And I was in that video, I said, this is the loneliest I've ever felt, but in a strange way, I love it. And I said, no one is going to come here at night in the dark.
I think that my answer to that, Mark, would be like so many things in life, it's about balance. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah, definitely.
isolation can be comforting and calming,
Mm.
and yet it can also, like you said, it's a double-edged sword. But that's the same
Yeah.
thing with communication and being around other people. We need that.
Yeah.
We
And
we
well,
really,
I
really
think
do.
that,
But at the
but
same time,
going back to uh, the book and everything, I can see how, to me, I feel like that's one of the most fascinating personal emotions and connections to explore, uh,
yeah,
because there's a lot of facets to this.
yeah, definitely.
It's funny because one of the it's another Australian film, by the way. Stacy Keach in Road Games. He spends the first half of the movie talking to his dog. And he's a great conversationalist, right? He talks about lots and lots of things. But the moment Jamie Lee Curtis gets into the vehicle, he falls apart. He can't sustain a conversation with her. They end up playing a stupid game, like, because he can't connect with other people. It's there's an allure to being alone for a certain class of people who don't know how to talk to people in real life,
Well,
like us.
the
Oh,
I read something once when I was young, and when I say young, I mean a young adult. I was still trying to figure out who I was in life and what I wanted to do and everything. And I read this. It talked about what you were talking about a minute ago, Maddie, about going nonstop from the time you get up to the time you go to bed. And the author talked about how much he missed that he was that kind of person, how much he wanted to get away from it. And he talked about specifically he saw some bird or something fly by, something like that. And he goes, "Uh, just to have the time to sit down and look up this bird was interesting to him for some reason. He said just to have the time to look this up and to read about something that interests me is not something that I have presently, and I want to get back to that. So um, any other questions for Maddie, you guys? I did want to ask, your father was a photographer and then transitioned to full-time to writing in the 70s. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. He was a fantastic photographer. He worked as a production photographer actually for On the Beach that was filmed here in Melbourne. Again, I'm fortunate enough to have original photographs from that series. He was still a hobby photographer for the rest of his life as well. And again, I think that was something about he hated posed photos. He didn't like portraiture. He didn't like anything like that. He was really attracted to the candid shots and the story that's in the candid shot when the person's not looking at the camera, or when they're engaged in a conversation, or if they're reading, or if they're looking at nature. He had a fantastic eye for capturing a story within an image.
It strikes me that you've got a bit. I wish more people had your attitude, especially, I don't want to sound like an old man here, but at your age, because you were born in 85, right? So as you became an adult, the internet was starting to, be more and more popular, I guess you'd say, 2005 or so. So yeah, it's an attitude I wish more had. I'd like to read the last paragraph in your forward for everybody. Uh, I think it's a good closing. To be seen and to see others fully without the filter, without the scroll. Now more than ever, this is a book that we need to read because it reminds us of what we're losing and what we can still reclaim. Displaced Person is a mirror held to our modern faces, reflecting the quiet ache of those who came before us, and a warning for what happens when we stop truly seeing each other, because the future isn't made by what we post. It's shaped by who we hold, who we notice, and who we refuse to let disappear. I love that. So,
Thank you.
can you talk about, in closing, any other future hopeful plans for a Displaced Person?
Absolutely. This is where we need your help. So as I said at the top of this, we are adapting for a feature film. The Australian film industry is incredibly competitive. We have one major funding body, Screen Australia. We will be submitting the screenplay to Screen Australia in November for a chance to come to the table and discuss having this film made. We can't do it alone. What we're hoping is that we can connect with people such as yourselves who can follow us on Instagram, go to our website, download the book, leave reviews, let the powers that be, the people that have the money, let them know that there is already an audience here for this book. A lot of the time, getting a movie made is about finding the right audience. We feel that we already have one, but we just need other people to know about that. So please download the book, share it with your friends, follow us on our socials. Our production company is called Rogues and Scoundrels. That's a pretty great name. It sticks in your head. Again,
just so you
we
know,
need your help, so please.
I linked to it in the show notes.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Mike. That's what we need. We might be one of 200 scripts that are submitted in that window, but if we can say, look at this body of supporting evidence, look at this fan base that we already have. People have reached out from the woodworks. I actually found Mike. I found a review that he'd written about Dad's book when I was doing my research, so I was able to track him down that way. But people have sent us DMs saying, I read this book when I was at school, or it always stayed with me, or I found this book in an op shop in the 90s and it's one of my favorites. So we're always saying to people, keep the conversation happening, because we can't do it alone. And it's the power of having a shared goal and this collective that we can be together.
Can I ask, who did you get to do the screenplay?
I'm doing the screenplay.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
On Instagram, I should have said I linked to your website, but your Instagram is Rogues and Scoundrels. Any dashes in there, anything like that?
So the Instagram handle is We Are Rogues and Scoundrels, all
Okay.
one word, lowercase. And then our website is roguesandscoundrels.com with dashes between, so rogues dash and dash scoundrels.
Right.
You
That's
can
what I
find
linked
us
to.
there. There's lots of information about the other projects that we're hoping to do, but we've got a timeline. It's all been really, really, really quick, and we're just hoping for the best, really.
Another, I'm sure you've considered this, but another option would be there's so much wonderful audio drama that's being made today, you know, for outlets like Audible and Spotify, that, you know, maybe that could be down the road too. Something to think about at least.
That's actually it's on the project slate. I grew up with a
Awesome.
lot of audio plays. Again, my dad was a huge fan. I grew up with the Goon Show. Any sort of audio stuff has a really warm place in my heart. But yes, that is something that we would like to explore as well. We would like to make this as accessible as possible. Some people don't like to read. Some people are unable to read. So we're absolutely hoping to have an audio version available.
Well, I only bring it up because it has it's got a place in my heart as well, audio drama. So,
Right.
so for everyone watching and listening, I linked to the website to the book on Amazon up near the top of the show notes, and below that I linked to their production website. If you click on the Amazon link, it'll take you to the Kindle page, but sometime later this week or so, you're going to have the print available as well, is what you're saying, right?
That's right. We're also looking into Barnes and Noble as well for a print-on-demand copy, and we're still in talks with the Google and the Apple bookstores. They've got quite a lot of paperwork which needs to be completed. But if you would like to go and grab a copy from Kindle, that's available. You can do that by the Amazon website or through our website as well. We've linked everything there for ease.
If you're watching this show at some point in the future, it's probably the print is probably already out there. So like Maddie said, the two best things you can do is, number one, buy the book, because in this, you know, for future productions like a movie or even an audio drama, money talks, you know. So if they've seen that a large audience has read the book and is buying the book, then that's nothing but a positive. And then the second thing is post about it online, tell your friends about it, you know. So anyway, anything else you want to say that I didn't think to ask, or did we cover it all?
Look, I think we covered it all. My only question would be to open it back up to the panel of what was your, favorite part, or something that stayed with you without spoilers. We're asking people what was, the one thing that stayed with them, because with this screenplay, we want to get it absolutely right. It's not an adaptation in the way that it's being modernized or anything. We're keeping completely true to Dad's original work. But if there was something that stayed with you, or a feeling, or even a word, let me know so that we can make sure that it's in there.
Okay. See you, Pete. Thanks for being here. Anyone else?
Thanks, Pete.
Anyone want to tackle that before we're finished with Maddie? Mark? You're muted, Mark.
No, I was just going to say I've got to run as well,
Okay.
because we are about to have a big ass Asian dinner. So
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Maddie, it's a pleasure, and I will
Thank you,
definitely see you all guys later.
See
Good
you,
night.
Mark.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. To answer your question, as far as I'm concerned, it's hard to pick out one thing, because yeah, it's cosmic horror, but reading it as a kid and as an adult, it felt so it was so realistically drawn. These are not cardboard characters. The thing that hits me the most when I think about the book, or that, and reading it the first time, was what happens at the very end. And I can't really talk about that, but just the realizations that Graham comes to. And the last two words in the book just rip your heart out. So those are the things that come to my mind. So
Yeah, thank you.
yeah. Anyone else want to tackle it? Nope.
Uh,
Well, yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say maybe I love the use of the word interface, how he described, and that was again very predictive.
Very, very ahead of his time. How did he know?
That's right. I forgot about that.
1961.
Yeah. Well, did he ever tell you why he went from the short story and decided to make it into a novel? It was just he loved the
I think
concept.
he had this incredible bunch of friends, lifelong friends, who he made connections with when he was 15 and 16 years old. And a lot of them were sci-fi writers and fans themselves. So he had this wonderful, wonderful support system. And they weren't gatekeepers with any of their work. They were always sharing their work with each other. They created their own science fiction club. You can look it up, the Melbourne Science Fiction Club. They had their own annual awards. So he always had this incredibly supportive network around him. And I think that he was encouraged to develop it.
I'm sure that's true. So to the audience, whether you're watching live or at some point in the future, if you'll comment below or email me and I'll pass it on to Maddie, lovecrafteasing@gmail.com, after you've had a chance to read the book, with those thoughts, what grabs you about the book? What's the one thing that grabs you the most? And I'll pass that on to her. So thank you.
That would be wonderful. We can't do it without you.
Yep, exactly. Thank you for being here, Maddie, and I'll stay in touch with you.
Thank you. And right on cue, I've got a magpie outside. So
All right.
Australia for you.
Have a good day.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So what'd you guys watch last night, Matt?
Oh, we watched Triangle.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great movie.
It
It
is.
is really good. And then in the end, it was just so poignant. It's just, it was, I kept thinking, I thought I understood what was going on, but I didn't, until like the very last scene.
Yeah.
Also, an Australian
It's just,
movie.
I would say this is actually, you could consider this cosmic horror. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you think,
Yeah.
Alan? Should that be on our list?
I think so. It's definitely cosmic horror. There's,
Oh, that should definitely be on our list then, yeah.
I mean, I guess if you read the preview, I'm not going to spoil too much. Some people would say, well, it's just a time travel movie.
But it's like, okay, so Yog-Sothoth is the gate and the key, contemporaneous with all time, coterminous with all space. So if you start thinking about if there is something like that, how would it experience the world? And I thought of like that short story by, or maybe it was a novel by Kurt Vonnegut, where humans just see this one point in time, but they see all of time. So a human being to them looks like a giant centipede, sort of like being born all the way through its
tunneling through four-dimensional space-time. Yeah.
Right. So this is like, it's like just trying to wrap my head around the storytelling. I thought it was really a brilliant script. They were helped by great performances by the actors. And there's a couple scenes in there that are just utterly horrific.
Yes, I know one in particular.
I want to talk about it, but the movie's out in 2009. Are we allowed to spoil it?
Well, you know what? Let's do this. We could do a Patreon podcast on it, and then people who haven't seen it just don't have to watch that one. Unless you don't think it would fill a whole podcast.
Well, we get blithering, and who needs a subject?
That's true. I mean, it's never stopped us before.
Just do a spoiler episode and spoil a bunch of things.
Yeah.
That's true. We could even talk about those time travel, time loop movies in general if we wanted to, because
Predestination.
there's several of them.
That movie, the only
category.
word for that movie is mindfuck. I just how someone thought of that is just so well done.
Heinlein. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess there's and I'm glad to see this. I was getting a little worried about Stephen King's financial situation, but he's got 6 upcoming adaptations coming in 2025.
I was
Oh
very
my
worried.
God.
Do you know which ones?
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
a list right here. The
Let's
Monkey.
go through. What?
The Monkey is available. I saw today to rent.
Yeah, for like $20 still, I
Yeah.
think. Right? Yeah.
I've
It's
heard
still in
people say it's
theaters.
good, but I've never seen it.
Kelly really liked it. I think it's sort of a bit comedic too. I don't know.
I saw it in the theater. It was a good adaptation.
Was it you or was it him that said something like it was kind of like Final Destination, as far as cutting out the middleman?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't think it was me, but I can see that.
Yeah.
Lots of setups.
Well, I didn't think I'd watch it, so I saw the trailer today and I thought, this could be a fun watch. So
Theo James is really good in the dual roles.
The Life of Chuck is another one. That's not horror. That's a novella from If It Bleeds, and I read one of the stories in If It Bleeds, but I haven't read this one.
I don't know it.
Yeah. Another Mike Flanagan's doing another Stephen King one. The Long Walk.
That's what. Wait, The Long Walk. Okay, I'm thinking of that Laotian movie that we saw. The Long Walk was when he was doing his Richard Bachman novels,
Mm-hmm.
and when he wrote the introduction to the new edition of that, he said during that time he was just full of rage. I don't know what, but he was really angry, an angry young man at that point, and that sort of comes through in the what's going to be the I guess the script, the book, the prose in the book.
Well, then you go from walking to running because the Running Man just came out.
Oh, hey, we got an Arnold Running Man.
I know, but
We don't need another.
all right. Well, let them know. Maybe they'll stop the release in theaters.
But I don't even know if I want to see The Long Walk. It's kind of like it's such heartburn with the idea behind the Hunger Games is watching children murder each other.
Yeah, no thanks.
And it's directed by the director of the last Hunger Games movie. So they're
Yes, they're just into that subject matter, huh?
Welcome to Derry.
Welcome to Derry. Is that like sort of like the TV show was, or what?
Yeah, I guess. HBO returns to the world of Stephen King's horror classic It with the 9-episode prequel series expected to arrive this year.
Oh, I see. So it's like when it first appeared in that region.
Kicks off in 1962, it says,
Oh, cool.
to explore the time leading up to the events of It, Chapter 1. I liked
It was
It, Chapter
cool
1,
to
but
see like a first, like one of the earlier time periods that it came
yeah,
to the town. That would be cool.
that would be cool. They explored a little bit in It, Chapter 2, but not just a little bit, I think.
Yeah, they kind of mention it, but it would be neat to have that explored a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it. I said it again. I said it again.
You said what?
Neat.
You said neat?
No, it's a scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh, okay. The Institute, an adaptation of the 2019 novel.
That is it's a very, I enjoyed that. I listened to it as a book on tape.
Mm-hmm.
The subject matter is really, again, it will be very disturbing because it involves the systematized, tormented abuse of children for a supposed higher purpose.
Well,
It
I
is it's like it's a sprawling novel. It's like one of his doorstops.
read it and was sorry that I did.
I enjoyed it well enough.
Well, I'm not. It just hit home a little bit too hard for me, but it's. I mean, it's a damn good novel. He's a damn good writer.
Right.
It's just. I did.
I'd be interested to see how they bring it to the screen, though.
Yeah.
This one, it's one of those ones where you think should really be a 6-episode series or something like that.
It is going to be a series.
Oh, okay, that'll work better. I don't see how you could do that in a 2-hour movie and make it work.
I did like toward at the end of the novel where you remember when they gave the guy, it's been since 2019 since I read it, but they're debating with one of the former leaders of the Institute, and basically pointed out how none of that was necessary. He thought he was doing a lot of evil for a lot more good, and then it turns out, you guys remember that?
I actually don't think that's what they thought.
Mm.
I thought that at the end they thought they had still thought they were doing the right thing, that there's no reformation, there was no redemption. It's like, we are going to save the world by tormenting these children, not realizing that if you have to torment children, then maybe the world isn't worth saving.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. What else? I think that's all of the adaptations.
That still leaves off. That's not counting another Carrie remake, another Carrie remake, and
what?
Oh yeah, they picked
Jesus.
it was the actress from Hereditary, right, to play Carrie. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Sissy Spacek still alive? I've lost track of her.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if they had her as the mother or something.
It'd be nice if they didn't do the fucking movie at all. That was what.
Oh, well.
I mean, Jesus, how many times does this have to be adapted?
I seriously wonder if, like, back in Shakespeare's time, people were like, Faustus again.
I read Pyramus and Thisbe. Come on, this is a duplicate.
Oh my
and
God.
A Cujo remake.
If only King had written another Cujo?
Yeah, there's gonna be a Cujo remake too.
If only he'd written other stories beside Carrie and Cujo and it, it could draw from those.
It's like, I feel sorry for the guy. It's like, think of all the rooms he has to build on his house to hold all the money.
Yeah. He's probably into Bitcoin. Anybody know about, what is this? I keep seeing this Shudder original series, The Creep Tapes.
Yes.
What is that all about? It's supposed to be hit Blu-ray and DVD on June the 10th.
Yeah, it's about a serial killer who tricks people into filming him. He makes up various reasons for, in one, he's an actor that needs somebody to film him, film an audition tape, and so it's a found footage.
Was this a movie also?
Don't think so.
Okay, then I think I did see the first, at least, episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actor, well, there's no other word for it, is really creepy.
He commits.
Yeah. So, and then you guys told me on Friday night with the Patreon hangout about a movie I'm going to check out called The Rule of Jenny Penn. Was that you, Alan, or was that somebody else?
Dave. Dave's recommended that.
Dave, okay. All right.
It's Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow were in a assisted living home, and Lithgow terrorizes the other residents at night.
Oof.
And there's a doll involved somehow.
Oh, great.
Of
Creepy
course
doll
there is.
movie.
Pretty sure I've already had that nightmare.
Well, you're gonna have it again.
Thanks.
Anyway, we already saw Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, well,
Aging Bubba Hotep, yes, Kim, definitely.
oh yeah, Bubba Hotep is so fantastic. I love that film. Some kind of Bubba Hotep. There's this article at Bloody Disgusting called Wheels of Terror at 35, The Stranger Danger Panic of the 1980s.
Mm.
Yeah, I guess that's a movie. But yeah. Yeah, anyway. That's all I got. You guys got anything you want to talk about before we go? I'm not feeling so
I've been
good.
listening on Audible to Philip Fracasse's Third Rule of Time Travel.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that it's filling the void that Severance Season 2 left me with. So I'm enjoying it.
Severance Season 2, huh?
Well, Severance Season 2 ended and it left a void that I feel like this story is filling for me in my life right now. So I'm enjoying it.
I see. Okay.
The best thing I'm watching right now is Dark Winds Season 3.
Yeah, I got one episode and I need to get caught up.
It's a bummer, Bridget, because they're dropping it once a week.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, okay, what do we do till next week?
Well, I love that series. I've seen the first 2 seasons with Danielle, and I'm deliberately waiting till they're all out so that we can just knock them all out on the weekend. You know?
Heaven forbid we wait a week between episodes like it's the 1980s again or something.
That's right. That's right.
It's being honest. It's like there are too many choices to watch. It's like, I think it's like there's so much content, it's hard to choose. And who now watches network TV like they used to watch network TV? You know, even the seasons are different. Like
I don't miss the commercials.
Sylvester Stallone made a series for Paramount called Tulsa King. It's entertaining enough. I'm not saying it's anything great, but it's 2 seasons now, and each season is like 8 episodes. A season used to be 23 episodes. You know, it's just not anymore.
Yeah.
The only thing that bugs me about the once a week thing is like Murdoch Mysteries, which I love. You know, they'll release it one episode at a time, but the whole season has already been out in Canada. So it's like, if it's already been out, why can't we just get the whole season at once?
What show's that?
Murdoch Mysteries.
Well, so I did follow the episodes of the Bondsman.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna watch episode 1 today.
I think I'm like 5 episodes into that. What do you think, Alan? Have you seen it?
I think it's pretty good. I like it. I like the Kevin Bacon. He's a good part for this role, and it scratches an Evil Dead itch if you need one.
Well, it reminds me strongly of Ash versus the Evil Dead, the series. I don't think it's as good as Ash, but it's watchable. To me, it feels a bit superficial.
Did they give him a chainsaw?
They did. They did give him a chainsaw. And I think that one scene with a chainsaw is very deliberately done.
Yes.
So.
And it's set in Georgia and filmed.
Oh.
So.
You could have been an extra.
I was an extra once in a movie, but it's been.
What movie was that?
A Civil War movie in the 90s. It was filmed at the college I was attending.
What was the name of it? Come on.
The Class of '61.
He's a historian. All historians lead very glamorous lives, so he got to be in a movie.
I was in opera when I was in college.
Okay.
They needed someone to lead the band across the stage for the second act of La Boheme. So I was on stage for 2 seconds.
Tell me more about that sometime when we're not recording. All right. Well, you know what? I'm not feeling the best, so I'm gonna say goodbye to everyone. But yeah, thanks for being here. If you haven't, truly, if you haven't read Displaced Person, you're watching this show, you'll really enjoy it. So anyway, thanks everyone for watching.
So wait, got a prize?
Oh yeah, you got a prize.
Send an email to easyandprices@gmail.com, put dark in the subject heading, and you could win this tarot deck.
There you go. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.